First station. Jesus is condemned to death. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. I stood in the crowd waiting to hear the verdict of a man called Jesus. People were shouting, arguing, and praying about this man's innocence. The noise dimmed as Pontius announces his decision. Jesus will be condemned to death in exchange for the freedom of Barabbas. I am stunned. How can an innocent man be found guilty? What has he done wrong? Why doesn't he say anything?
Pontius knew that Jesus was innocent, but he had an angry crowd before him. He tried to reason with the people, but to no avail. He was fearful that the crowd may turn against him if he did not give to them what they wanted, and so for the sake of his own safety, he abided by their angry crowd's wishes and sentenced Jesus to death.
Imagine losing your life when you have so much more to live for. Imagine being accused of a crime you did not commit, being punished for expressing your faith in everything you believed in. Imagine people wanting you to die because they did not like or could not comprehend what you were proclaiming. Jesus' love for God and the world was so overwhelming that he was willing to endure pain and suffering for our salvation.
The second station. Jesus takes up the cross. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Jesus is given the cross to carry. My heart is filled with horror as I can see the splinters driving into his hands and shoulders. He has so far to walk, the pain would be excruciating. How can people do this to him?
In receiving their punishment, those condemned to death were required to carry the cross on which they were to be crucified on. The walk to the hill was a long one, met by uneven, rocky ground and steep ascents. The cross was made of rough, hewn wood and would have been extremely difficult for Jesus to carry as he approached the hilltop.
We often complain when hardships or burdens come our way. However, many times we have a chance to resolve them. Jesus could not resolve these hardships. He could not stop carrying the cross. There was an angry crowd behind him and brutal soldiers by his side. The pain that he felt would have been unbearable. It would have been so easy to give in. But he kept going because he loved us so much.
The third station. Jesus falls for the first time. Where there is injury, pardon. I watched as Jesus falls onto the rocky ground, his knees swelling and blood pouring down his legs. With a look of determination on his face, Jesus gets up. I can see his body shaking under the weight of the cross. I want to stop his pain. This has gone too far.
Jesus didn't have any sleep the night before, and his last meal would have been the Last Supper. He was physically weak and tired, and the cross would have been extremely difficult for Jesus to carry. His injuries from the fall would have made him weaker, and he still had a long way to go. People would have seen him as a fraud. If he was the Son of God, why did he fall?
This is the Son of God, the God who created everything we have, everything we are, and everything that is to come. This was Jesus Christ, who healed the sick and raised the dead, and yet he was still human. He was suffering to save us from our sins. How can we turn away from him?
The fourth station. Jesus meets his mother. face is full of pain and sadness as he looks around the crowd. But then a look of joy and content sweeps across his face. He is looking at a woman pushing through the crowd. It is his mother. She is crying, trying to reach him, telling him that she will never leave his side. There is so much love in her gentle face. Her presence must be comforting to him.
After the fall, the crowd would have jeered Jesus, taking away any hope that he had. Jesus would have felt alone. He would have been looking around the crowd for support, hoping to see his mother, who comforted him when he was hurt and kissed him when he was scared. She would have given Jesus the hope and strength to continue on.
Imagine someone you love dearly, your daughter, your son, your parents, your best friend, being mocked, physically tortured and beaten. Seeing the pain in their eyes, seeing their body breaking down, bit by bit, and you being powerless and unable to stop it. Imagine trying not to let them see how worried and scared you are. Being strong for them so that they may not lose hope. Mary would have been struggling with all these emotions as her only son walks toward his crucifixion.
The fifth station. Simon helps Jesus carry the cross. Where there is despair, hope. Jesus is struggling now. I can see his knees shaking under the heavy weight of the cross. Wait, what is this? A man is being forced to help Jesus, an ordinary man, and he is carrying the cross with Jesus.
Simon was from Cyrene. He lived a simple life in the country with his wife and 2 sons, Alexander and Rufus. He was just passing by the procession when the soldiers by Jesus' side forced Simon under knife point to help Jesus carry the cross.
Sometimes we forget that Jesus was actually human. We forget that he too needed help, as we do. He still needs our help to this very day. He needs us to spread his messages of love. We may be like Simon, sometimes, and being willing to help us. We must remember that it's our duty as Christians and followers of Christ to correct things that we believe are wrong. In this world, we must bring his saving hopes in time of despair.
The sixth station. Veronica wipes the face of Jesus. Where there is darkness, light. There is more pushing and shoving. This time it is a young woman trying to get through. In the confusion, the guards don't see her slip through the corridor. She produces a simple cloth from her dress, and once she is close enough to Jesus, she starts to clean the spit, blood, sweat, and dirt from his face.
Women at the time were not recognised as having important roles in society, but Jesus saw the potential in all of them and treated them with respect and dignity. As a result, many of his followers were women. Although she didn't realise at the time, Veronica played an important part in history. Through her immense courage and love for Jesus, Veronica would have made his journey less painful and given Jesus hope to continue on.
Imagine the courage it would have taken to break through a line of soldiers, avoiding swords and spears, not to save Jesus, but to lessen the discomfort he was experiencing. We find it hard enough to be kind to our family and friends. Convenience is a way of life for us. How often have we heard excuses like, I don't have time, what will they do for me? Or somebody else will do it better. We should look to Veronica as a guide, someone who can teach us to express our love for Jesus and one another, as she did, selfless, wonderful devotion.
The seventh station. Jesus falls for the second time. I can see him now, his weakened body slowly carrying the heavy cross up the hill. Wait, he is faltering. Jesus, the Son of God, has fallen again. Why don't the soldiers help him? I want them to stop mocking and hurting him. Just help him.
Jesus was halfway along his horrible path. He was getting weaker and weaker. The cuts, bruises, aches, and pain became too much. Jesus fell for the second time. The soldiers closed in around him. They were losing their patience with this man who called himself the Son of God. If he was who he claimed to be, why had he fallen again? The Son of God was human, like us.
Jesus knew what lay ahead, and yet he continued on. Why? To save us. Would we be able to do the same? We don't love unconditionally. We expect something in return. We are sinful and imperfect. Yet Jesus still suffered the torment, humiliation, and pain for each and every one of us. He did it all for love.
The 8th station. Jesus meets the women of Jerusalem. The 9th station. Jesus falls for the 3rd time. I have seen Jesus fall twice already. This is too much. I want to reach out and comfort him. Pull him away from the soldiers and angry crowd. He looks so gentle and innocent. His face filled with so much compassion for his people, yet so much pain. I want to help him somehow.
The weight of the cross would have been at least 5 times heavier than Jesus himself. His knees were swollen and grazed so that it would have been excruciating to walk. His hands were cut, thorns spiked his head, and fatigue and exhaustion were setting in. To fall for the 3rd time would have been humiliating and painful.
The way Jesus suffered is something that we can only imagine. But still, we sometimes take for granted what he did. Over 2,000 years later, we are filled with the horror of what one man endured for the sake of all humanity. And we desire to help him. But how? We can help him by helping each other when in need.
The 10th station. Jesus is stripped off his clothes. To be loved is to love. I can see Jesus. He's been mocked, crowned with thorns, and flogged. But as if that isn't enough humiliation for him, Jesus is stripped off his clothes and stands before the crowd naked, with only a loincloth. With his last morsel of dignity taken away from him, the Son of God now appears like a million other poverty-ridden beggars.
As part of their punishment, the convicted criminals were stripped of their garments. Standing naked in front of the crowd symbolized that the criminals were only 2 steps away from death. The guards threw dice to divide Jesus' garments. He would have been feeling humiliated and scared, knowing that the next step would be his crucifixion.
We are constantly reminded of the horror experienced by children in third world countries. These children are without sanitation, food, or even medicine. But what do we do for them? Do we turn a blind eye to these people who, like us, were created in God's image? Do we simply watch them with pity, or actually do something to help them? To love as Jesus taught us is to love others as you would yourself.
The 11th station. Jesus is nailed to the cross. For it is in giving that we receive. The crowd has become unusually silent. All I can hear is the sound of a hammer as it hits the nails. Large metal nails pierce through his skin, through his muscles, and straight through the bones of his wrists and ankles. It is painful enough for me just to hear that awful noise, and I can only imagine what it must be like. But it is in the pain in Jesus' face that becomes too much. I have to turn away.
The weight of a fully grown man hung from 2 nails through his wrists. Jesus would have been exhausted after the walk up the hill. His whole body would have ached, and every breath he took would have been a struggle. Jesus may have been the Son of God, but the pain would still have been agonizing.
How willing would we die for our family, our friends, or a cause? To endure pain so intense that all you want to do is die. But instead, all you can do is hang there and wait for death. Would you do anything to stop the pain? Or would you still be willing to die?
The 12th station. Jesus dies on the cross.
My God! My God! Why have you forsaken me?
It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. The cross is raised. I will never forget the pain and anguish on Jesus' face. Tears are rolling down my cheeks as I watch him die. In his last moment, he asked God to forgive those who condemned him. How could this man be so compassionate towards those who have just mocked and tortured him?
His death would have been a huge relief. All the pain and the agony had ceased forever. Before he died, Jesus forgave all those around him. He said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." It was not the nails that kept Jesus on the cross, but his love for us.
This man died for all of us, not to become a martyr or even to become famous, but because he loved us. Would you have forgiven anyone while in so much pain? We ourselves find it hard enough to forgive in everyday situations. Would we be able to forgive those who were responsible for a torturous death?
The 13th station. Jesus is taken down from the cross. And it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Some men from the crowd took Jesus down from the cross. They are struggling with his dead weight, when a woman, his mother I think, can take her grief no longer. She cries out in sorrow, takes the body of her beloved son in her arms, and weeps.
Jesus died on the Jewish day of preparation. To prevent bodies from being on the cross on the Sabbath, Pilate asked to have the legs of the men broken, to quicken their death. When the soldiers came to Jesus, they found him already dead. So instead they pierced his side, and from the wound flowed blood and water. Joseph of Arimathea, a secret disciple of Jesus, organised for his body to be taken down from the cross and attended to in the proper Jewish tradition.
Jesus died for the person. It was not for a country, a cause, or a fame. Jesus made the ultimate sacrifice and died for a simple but important reason. Jesus died out of love for our salvation. Of all that we consider important, material, possession, our status in life, shouldn't love be the most significant?
The 14th station. Jesus is buried.
The death of Christ embodied victory. His death was not in vain in giving his life for us. Jesus shows us how to behave when faced with conflict. Imagine enduring pain and suffering and giving up your life for the salvation of every person, past, present, and future. Imagine how much love it would have taken for God to sacrifice his beloved and only Son for the sins of humanity.
Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there